we stand, please?
Bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, bless us this evening as we work together and make decisions for the best of Ocoee and its residents. We thank you for your wisdom and guidance in our thoughtful deliberations. Bless all of our city workers, city residents, and especially the men and women in uniform who serve our city and our country. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're trying to, if you hear the dialing noise, I think you're trying to get Commissioner Pickford, the commissioner. He had operations, so we doing the phone tonight.
Commissioner, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go ahead and do a roll call. Commissioner Brenson?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson? Here. Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Firstner?
Here.
Commissioner Oliver?
Here.
All right. Presentations and proclamations. Award presentation by Assistant City Manager Craig Shedd.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Commission. This is one of the rare fun opportunities I get up here, and that is I get to present 2 awards this evening. The first award is something that has been preceded by a tremendous amount of hard work, and I have representatives of the Building Division of our Development Services Department here this evening to partake in receiving this recognition. And just a brief background, roughly 10 years ago, we were building our computer system, which our building division had the first A to Z online building permit in Central Florida. City of Orlando takes credit, but theirs only took it to a certain extent, the process. And since that time, we have really actively worked to try and create the best building division in all of Central Florida, and I believe that we're very close. It is not often that you, in a professional social setting, run into a CEO like we did not long ago with the CEO of City Furniture, where they come up to you and seek you out and tell you the City of Ocoee's building division is the best building division I have ever worked with for one of my projects. That's a rarity. And, you know, we hear a lot of those little types of stories quite often. People will just come out of the blue. So most recently, and this is one of those things where when you try to hire good people, they're going to go out and do things in the best interest of the city. This was one that I was told while we were in the process, I was told about this. And most of you understand what a building permit probably is. If you're going to build something, you've got to get a permit. A lot of us don't really realize how much information these employees are responsible under a professional license for knowing. And when I say a professional license, I mean something that the life and safety of the occupant of that structure hinges upon. Well, most recently, I am very happy to tell you that the City of Ocoee's Building Division has been awarded the right to be licensed as a licensed building code education provider by the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation, Bureau of Education and Testing, and the Florida Building Code Administrators and Inspectors Board. This is a very big deal to the city. This will save us a tremendous amount of money. It will make us a more attractive workplace from a recruiting standpoint. And I'm going to brag on Dean Hall, our building official, a little bit, because Dean kind of quietly goes about his work and gets the job done. I don't get complaints. We don't get complaints very often on building. And usually, when I sit down with staff, I get to go back and tell the complainant that, well, you didn't fill something out right, but we're going to help you fix it. But Dean has always worked on building his inspector workforce, and we have a very aggressive education programs to gain extra licenses in the different trades. And when I was talking earlier about how much information all of these folks need to know, There's well over 100 types of permits that we have, and there's commercial, and there's residential, and there's plumbing, electrical, mechanical, the list goes on. And you have to have a proficient working knowledge of a volume per license that's about this thick, and they have to test on it. And then they have to have so many hours in the field. Well, this new designation that we've achieved provides the city a building code education provider license number. And what that means is we have the ability to train current and future talent seeking new trade licenses. We don't have to go to a third party and spend a lot of money and send them somewhere. We can actually do that in-house. It's a very big deal. If you want some funny stories, Dean also sits on the Building Official Association Florida governing board as a governing board member, and he can tell you some funny stories of much bigger local governments than Ocoee that have really not fared well in front of the licensing authority that's granted us this designation. So it was a very prestigious thing for them to do. The team that you have here, and I'm going to ask them to come down front in a moment and get a photograph with the commission if it would be permissible. They make people's day, and it takes a special type of person to be able to do that. I don't often, regretfully, give them the kind of praise that they deserve, but this designation means so much to this city in terms of our recruitment, in terms of our workforce development, that I hope you will join me in giving them a big round of applause. And I would like to have Dean and members of the building division come down front so we can get a picture.
Come on down.
And I have a certificate. With us here tonight are Dean Hall, our building official, Doug Hammond, our deputy building official, Laureen Cooper, who's our permitting manager, and Ramon Serrano, Gary Jensen, Ryan Morgan, Jamie Simons, and our building permit techs, Nikki Bentley, Rosie Ramos, Jessica Stewart, Kira Pamilia, Tila Scarborough, and Taylor Tillman.
Why don't we just stand up behind them that way?
It's a lot easier. Maybe we should all, I think we should come this way.
So each one of you want to give a speech?
5 minutes. 5 minutes each.
Thank you very much. I will say that our staff in every department is really great. This department works a lot, especially with all the building and the participation with all the construction going on in our city. They're doing an excellent job. And Dean has been one of our employees. How long have you been here, Dean? 16 years. So he has worked his way up, and he has done a great job, and so has the staff. We appreciate it very much. All right, you got another one, right?
I've got another one, and I'd like to have Steve Krug come on down front here. This award is such an attractive looking trophy that, I've thought about grabbing it for myself, but that just wouldn't be right. So I want to recognize Steve Krug because our Blueford Avenue reconstruction project received a prestigious award called the Excellence in Construction Award from the Associated Building Contractors of Central Florida. And it's called the Eagle Award. And this was one of the biggest team efforts that the city's undertaken. We have all been in the trenches together for a couple years now with implementation of our downtown master plan. And Blueford Avenue is our main gateway into that downtown master planned area. And when you undertake a project list such as the one that this commission, so gracefully approved, approximately $44 million worth of investments in our downtown, not a lot of places can say that we did a lot of the work in-house. And Steve Krug and his team at Public Works, and this was kind of an interdisciplinary team. It touched several departments, but everyone banded together to try to make that happen. And Ulrich Construction is part of that team. They used, I believe, 37 different contractors through the life of that project. And we have now won an award of excellence. We will be issuing a release to the commission and posting their packet, recognition packet on the website so that people can see that. It was a very impressive looking nomination for that award. But I would like to personally, tell Steve here and his team and the other departments that worked on it, what a pleasure it's been to work with them. Some of the times that we've had haven't been so great, as it goes with any undertaking of such a large magnitude. But when you look at the results and we get compliments on a regular basis on how much nicer everything looks down here, and we've already got people looking at investing in our downtown, you can tell that the commission really made the right decision to move in this direction. So please join me in congratulating Steve. And I know Steve would love to get a photograph with the commission as well, with the eagle in hand.
Before we do the photos, I know Craig said it's a team effort. We do appreciate the direction the commission took in the city manager's office, letting us go forth, but it was a definite effort with our utilities department, our planning division, and also our finance department. We did some unique things we've never done in the city before to get these projects successfully completed, and it's neat to see us get an award and have that recognized.
Well stated. Going down front. Still done. Some nice. Can y'all?
That's okay, I had yours.
Okay, all right. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to pull number 5 on the consent agenda this evening and move it to the December 3rd meeting if the commission doesn't have an issue with that. Just trying to time the moving of the clinic with the city of Apopka to keep our network in place, and they've run into a little delay. I think we'll be ready for the December 3rd meeting.
Okay, is that it?
No, I have a couple other things too. I don't know if you wanted to deal with that now.
All right. You'll do a motion to pull it?
I'll make a you made a
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson to pull item 5 to December 3rd. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Forstner. Any more comments? If not, let's vote.
And Commissioner Brinson?
Did he? Yeah.
Aye. Okay.
Motion carried unanimously. Commissioner Brinson voting no phone.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 2 other things I wanted to brief you on since we're not having a second meeting in November. And the first is the emergency repair at Bluford and Highway 50. Utilities is out there assessing and repairing a collapsed line in a 20-foot deep manhole over one of the lanes of westbound State Road 50. The reason I bring this up is you've probably seen it. It's creating a traffic nightmare out there. It is 20 to 24 feet deep. It's going to be a costly repair, and it's going to take probably the next 4 to 6 weeks to get that completed. So if you have any constituents who are asking you about it, it's a very deep and very complicated repair, and there'll probably be a shutdown of Bluford northbound at some point for an extended period of time.
So way to work on that at night.
Well, it's the lane's not going to be able to be open, so we're going to try to effectuate the repair as soon as we can, but it's very deep and it's under one of the travel lanes, so it's going to be very pricey also, and we'll bring that information back to you at some point in the future. The second one is, you're aware we're looking at a temporary fire station for the storefront we have on West Road right now. This is something that was put in the budget for this year. It's currently funded at $250,000. The lease ends 12/31, so December 31st of this year, we need to be out of there. And the reason I bring this up is we've looked at a couple of different options, basically going up there, seeing if we can purchase a residential house, see if we can purchase a commercial property or lease a commercial property, or look at some of the property that the city or another entity owns up there where we can put a temporary station until the new station is done through our public-private partnership. What we've identified is it looks like the only option that's going to be available at this time is getting one of the temporary stations, and we've priced those out. Lake County had one, I think Claremont. They're $130,000 to $140,000. There'd be some typical site work and utility connections, but this is something, since we're not having a meeting at the end of the month, probably going to need the commission approval for up to $150,000 to purchase and move forward with that temporary station so we can get up and running by January 1st. The other costs I think we can take care of and report back to you under emergency ordinance. But I wanted you all to know that there's probably going to be a $150,000 expenditure we're going to have to make prior to our next meeting.
Where's it going to go?
A couple of different places we're looking. We're looking at all the city properties up there. One of the city properties next to Glad Tidings. We understand with the intersection improvements at Fuller's Cross and Ocoee Apopka, that's not the best. We have very limited options at this point. I think the fire chief is comfortable with some of the ones we're looking at. With a 4 to 6 week lead time on the temporary station, we really need to get going on that right now until we finalize some of the sites that we're looking at. I think we probably need a formal motion in order to meet the purchasing requirements to go ahead for up to $150,000. And it would be under a piggyback contract with either, I believe, Lake County or Claremont. So it's something that was bid out that we could piggyback off of.
Is that under the 250?
No, for the temporary trailer. It's a triple wide trailer with shower facilities, kitchen facilities. The good part about that, though, is if we keep it for a year and a half or 2 years, we can sell it when we're done. It's nothing we need to hold on to. We're looking at rent up there in the neighborhood of $9,000 to $10,000 a month. And we would have to go in the bank in the plaza up there. We looked at that. We'd have to go in and build shower facilities. We'd have to build the kitchen. So I think this is probably going to come up about half the price of what we would have to pay if we chose some other option.
Any commissioners have any comments?
I do that 250,000 that we had in the we have in the budget.
Correct.
That's where the 150 is going to come from.
That's correct. Yeah, and then there'll be some site work that we have to do. There'll be some utility connections that we have to do. You know, it could be another 25 getting it placed in the site work, depending on where, if it's a vacant lot, or you know, bringing some, might be a small septic system that we have to put in. But you know, we were looking at a property to purchase and sell when we're done, but there's really nothing that's going to fit our needs at this time. And the clock is running.
And we can't sell this?
We can
structure?
sell the trailer when we're done. Yes.
We hope.
Weren't we talking at one time about a partnership up in that area? Am I correct? It's been a while.
Yeah, that's to build the new station, and the one, if we weren't doing the partnership, the one vacant piece of property that we could maybe negotiate to put that on is where the new station would be going. So
Okay,
that's not a viable option.
it's not.
We thought about maybe we could push it to the back, but it's wetlands to the back of that parcel, so that won't work.
All right. Any more comments?
I just have a question. I guess since this lease is up December 31st,
Yes.
is that right?
Mhm.
Were we negotiating with the shopping plaza, the owners of the shopping plaza, to renew this lease, or we just
Yes.
decided we wasn't going to?
No, they basically told us they need the property back.
Okay. When did they actually?
I got a
give us that
letter.
information.
I got a
I'm just
letter about a
curious.
month ago. We heard the rumor for a while, but they actually sent me the letter about a month ago.
Okay, so they decided not to.
Yeah, and we've
Renew it.
called them and we said, you know, how firm are you? Do you really? And they said, yeah, we really need you out.
Okay. So,
More comments? No more comments, I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson to spend up $150,000. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Oliver. Any more comments?
Yeah, was it 150 plus the?
No, we need the authorization for 150 right
Okay.
now, just for the trailer.
Okay.
All right. Here's a second. Seconded by Commissioner Oliver. No more comments, let's vote. Motion carries.
Commissioner, go ahead. Brinson?
I voted yes.
Yes. Okay.
Everybody voted yes. Commissioner Branson on the phone.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I had this evening.
All right, Commissioners' announcements. Commissioner Oliver.
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner First.
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Wilson.
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Branson.
None at this time?
All right. All right. The next regular city commission meeting scheduled for November the 1st has been canceled. So next one will be December the 3rd. So no meeting December the 19th. All right, in the observance of Thanksgiving Day, City Hall will be closed on Thursday, November the 28th, and Friday, November the 29th. No trash collection is scheduled for Thursday. Could you please put that on the city TV? Save us some phone calls, maybe. Maybe. All right, let's see. All the public comments I have is pertaining to the, it will be at the end of it, or on the agenda, so we'll have to move on. Anybody else in the public have any comments? It's not anything on the agenda, they want to say anything. All right,
Mayor, I just have one question. On our public comments for our consent agenda, this public comment section is just simply for items on the consent agenda, or is just for any public comments?
says the consent.
Consent, just items on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. It says public comment, so I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we were all on the same page. Okay, perfect.
All right. Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion? Consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Law, seconded by Commissioner First. Any more comments? No more comments, let's vote.
Mr. Bristol votes yes.
Commissioner Branson voted yes, all the commissioners voted yes. Motion passes unanimously. All right. All right, 14, public hearing, Orange County Joint Planning Area Agreement, JPA. Deputy Service Director Rumer.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you, I'm very happy to bring. This is a joint planning area agreement with the City of Ocoee and Orange County. A little brief background. We had a joint planning area agreement before this. It started in 1994. It had to deal with annexations. That initial joint planning area agreement was amended over 18 times, changing land uses, amending boundaries and such. February of 2019, we ended the joint planning area agreement and started fresh discussions with staff, Orange County staff. I would like to add that working relationship was really
Something outside.
was really nice. We had a lot of fruitful meetings, and we're proud to bring before you a new joint planning area agreement with Orange County. The way the process will work is the Ocoee City Commission will approve the agreement. The mayor will sign 2 copies. We'll take that to the county, and they'll put it on their next agenda, and then we'll have a joint planning area agreement again. It's summarized sort of the hot points of the joint planning area agreement. It sets an agreement that is 5 years with 5-year renewals. It specifically talks about the importance of Ocoee-Apopka Road and the ability of both the city and the county to joint plan. That is a county-maintained road, so it specifically states we're going to look at either providing a future complete streets, but that section of road is very important to West Orange County. It talks about elimination of enclaves, which you normally find in joint planning area agreements. It's getting rid of a process to get rid of those properties that are in the county that meet some threshold. It expresses a desire to expand the Community Redevelopment Agency based off some properties in the 2006 study. The initial joint plan, CRA agreement did not include properties that at the time that were in the county. So we've expressed a mutual desire to work to upgrade this Community Redevelopment Agency agreement to include those future properties. It also talks about recommending that the two agencies look at even extending the CRA per law the additional 10 years up to 2046. Again, this Community Redevelopment Agency was started in 2006. It's a 30-year term. You can seek an additional 10-year term. And finally, the Joint Planning Area Agreement sets a new boundary. This new revised boundary, I'll show you here in the next slide, will include additional lands from what was previously approved. As part of the agreement, there's 3 exhibits. We have the Joint Planning Area Boundary Map. The bold line you see is sort of the line in the sand. We will agree not to annex outside of that line with the county under this agreement, and they will agree not to be against any annexations within that boundary as long as it meets all statutory requirements. To kind of show you the difference from the original Joint Planning Area Agreement and the one proposed with this attachment to the agreement, the areas highlighted in yellow. It's an additional over 500 acres, of which 300 are going to be before you later on in an item. So we've got more lands in this joint planning area boundary. We can plan our future. We can plan those potential future residents or those future uses. We do that via the next attachment to the agreement, which is a joint planning area future land use map. The city and county have looked at those properties that are in the county. We look at land uses as they come into the city. They will annex under these land uses. If for some reason there is a need to change the land use upon annexation, we would then amend this joint planning area agreement, specifically this map, and discuss what that means. There's a little bit different data from going from residential to commercial or something like that. So we have the ability to amend the map, but we're trying to be forward thinking, and as these properties come in, we can automatically annex them and they assume that joint planning area land use. Finally, there's a map called the Enclave Annexation Map. This is the high priority properties that meet certain criteria of statutes that gives us a possibility to annex under means other than voluntary. And this is a map that recognizes we have these parcels and we're going to work to try to start eating away and annex them into the city. My recommendation to you tonight is to approve the agreement and authorize the mayor to sign. And again, we can send this agreement on to Orange County. Happy to entertain any questions.
Anybody up here want to ask questions for us?
Under this new agreement, is there a term?
5-year term, and then you have additional 5-year automatic if you do not meet the stipulation to say we want to discuss ending this agreement or renegotiating.
Anybody else? No. All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody in the public have any comments on Ocoee Orange County Joint Planning Area Agreement, JPA? Okey-doke, I'm going to close it, bring it back up to the dais.
Make a motion. I'll make
Motion
that
by-
motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson for item number 14. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ferguson. Any more comments? If not, let's vote. Yep. Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Brenson voting no phone. All righty, thank you very much. All right, first reading of ordinance on number 15, Doctor Property, 8807 Hackney Prairie Road, annexation and rezoning. Director Roomer.
This is just first reading of these ordinances.
Okay, yeah,
Mayor, I'll read the annexation ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, annexing into the corporate limits of the City of Ocoee, Florida, certain real property containing approximately 2.13 acres located on the north side of Hackney Prairie Road, approximately 2,683 feet east of North Clark Road pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner. Finding said annexation to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, the Ocoee City Code, providing for and authorizing the updating of official city maps, providing direction to the city clerk, providing for severability, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for an effective date. And this is the rezoning ordinance, an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, changing the zoning classification from Orange County A1 Rural Agricultural to City of Ocoee R1A, single-family dwelling on certain real property containing approximately 2.13 acres, located on the north side of Hackney Prairie Road, approximately 2,683 feet east of North Clark Road, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner. Finding such zoning to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, providing for and authorizing the revision of the official city zoning map, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
All right, we'll have the second reading on this item, and you get to have public comments on December the 3rd, 2019. December the 3rd, 2019. All right. Number 16, Land Development Code, LDC Amendment to Article 3.
This is also the first reading of the ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, amending subsection A of Section 3-2 of the City of Ocoee Land Development Code relating to the Planning and Zoning Commission, allowing the mayor and city commissioners to designate one alternate board member to the Planning and Zoning Commission, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
This is
All
first
right.
reading.
Same thing, we'll have the public hearing on the December the 3rd, 2019. Anybody want comments? Will be comments that night for the public. All right, number 17, second reading of ordinances, public hearing of ordinance, second reading of ordinance for CLRM Plan Unit Development, PUD annexation, rezoning, and large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. Director Ruber.
Thank you, Mayor. This process before you today has 4 elements. It has a annexation, a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, a rezoning to plan unit development, and approval of a PUD land use plan. The location of the property, it's called the CLRM Plan Unit Development. It's located on the south side of McCormick Road and west of Apopka Island, adjacent on the north side of the West Orange Trail. You see from the aerial, there's a existing home and barn. The property is now located in the joint planning area. This project came before you before for a transmittal of the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, and we did the first readings of the annexation ordinances, the large-scale comp plan ordinance, and the rezoning ordinance. The property is over 200 acres. It has an Orange County agricultural A1 zoning and a rural settlement 1-5 land use designation. What's proposed as part of the plan unit development is 381 single-family homes, lot sizes 40 to 60s. It's sort of like a little cluster development. Shorter lot sizes provides more open space. The project will access McCormick Road via 2 entrance points. The project went through transportation planning. There's an analysis in your packet that was sent to the state Department of Economic Development, the state agencies, and surrounding jurisdictions. The site is within Orange County's utility service area for water and sewer, and the city will provide reclaim. And the project has recently received a mitigation agreement with Orange County Public Schools to mitigate the schools. The project therefore has received approval from the state to go forward. It's received approval from Orange County Public Schools to move forward because of the mitigation agreement, and it is now within the joint planning area agreement we have with Orange County, so it meets that criteria. The map up to the top left is currently, it shows the future land use designations of the property. If you look at the joint planning area map that was adopted with the earlier item, some of these properties would change. This is based off the old joint planning area map. The map on the right is the light yellow will all turn to darker yellow. That's low-density residential that allows up to 4 dwelling units an acre. The large-scale comprehensive plan amendment will change the land use on this property. We therefore update our comprehensive plan to show this property as being low-density residential, removing the Orange County rural 1 to 5. The rezoning the plan unit development is done through a plan unit development plan, a PUD land use plan. This is the plan. It has a number of pages, but I've shown you the major site plan. It has the lot layout. You can see the location of the West Orange Trail. You have Apopka Island, McCormick Road. The project provides significant buffers along Apopka Island, McCormick Road, and the West Orange Trail. It kind of moves all of the lots in tight to provide that open space. The master property parcel actually extends beyond the line, but as sort of a way to help with a issue with a perceived creating an enclave. We are not physically annexing in all of the property. We're leaving some to keep a contiguous enclave, even though it's all in our joint planning area now. The subdivision, it'll be a single-family subdivision. The lot sizes will be 40 to 60. It'll have amenities, open space, a great addition to the city. This is the joint land use plan. So when you adopt if you adopt the rezoning to plan unit development, you will also approve of this land use plan. This will set up the zoning district that the development will have to abide by. Issues that we've encountered, planning and zoning, and the transmittal hearing with Orange County creates an enclave, not within the JPA boundary. We did some things, so basically we've resolved them now. We've amended the legal description. It's now in the joint planning area. We had citizens' concerns about traffic in the area. To date, we have implemented the signal timing for Clark Road, which goes from the West Oaks Mall all the way up to Claricona Ocoee Road. There's one signal by the mall that needs new apparatus. Once that's done, that timing will be fully functional. The consultant will go out and test the timing and make any adjustments to get those amount of minutes and drive time that the study showed we would gain by doing the signal timing. And finally, we just approved the site permit, the site plans for the Clark Road extension that Arden Park's going to construct. As they finish phase 4 and 5, they will also start on the Clark Road extension, which will provide a viable north-south extension in that area. And as part of the review, Orange County identified at McCormick Road and Apopka Island an opportunity for a signal on the side. The developer has worked with Orange County. We've committed to put this as a condition of our approval. So they're going to provide some funding for a signal at McCormick and Apopka Island. And there's a plan to provide an extension to the West Orange Trail down McCormick Road. It appears that there's not enough right-of-way on the north side of McCormick, so we're looking at bringing the trail on the south side. You've got a vast area of undeveloped land, so they're going to give some land for a trail. It'll be a great benefit to this community. And finally, I recommend Commission approve the ordinances for annexation, the ordinance for large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, the ordinance for rezoning to PD, and the PUD land use plan with the conditions stated. The conditions are a little bit revised. We received a revision on Monday. From what's in your packet, it has the amount of $200,000, so we'll make this a part of the record. Thank you.
All right, you can.
This is the first ordinance is the annexation ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, annexing into the corporate limits of the City of Ocoee, Florida, certain real property containing plus or minus 193.22 acres located on the south side of East and West McCormick Road and on the west side of North Apopka Vineland Road, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owners. Finding said annexation to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, the Ocoee City Code, providing for and authorizing the updating of official city maps, providing direction to the city clerk, providing severability, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for an effective date. And the Comprehensive Plan Amendment Ordinance, this is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, amending the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan as adopted in 1991 as amended, amending the future land use map of the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use designation from Orange County Rural Settlement 1 to 5 to a City of Ocoee low-density residential for certain real property containing approximately 193.22 acres located on the south side of East and West McCormick Road and on the west side of North Apopka Vineland Road, providing for and authorizing the revision of official city future land use map, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. And then finally, the rezoning ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, changing the zoning classification from Orange County A1 to City of Ocoee PUD on certain real property containing approximately 193.22 acres located on the south side of East and West McCormick Road and on the west side of North Apopka Vineland Road, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner. Finding such zoning to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, providing for and authorizing the revision of the official city zoning map, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
All right, I have two. I'm going to open it to the public for the public hearing. I have two speaking reservation forms here. One is for Susan Adams. Come up, and then we have one for Nicholas Valmuller.
Yes, I no longer
Oh,
need to
only,
speak on this item.
okay, all right.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Susan Adams, 60 West McCormick Road, Apopka, Florida, 32703. Our home is adjacent to this new development, and I have received and reviewed all the documents posted for the meeting. I made a note of the developer's agreement to fund one half of the design and the installation of the traffic signal at McCormick Road and North Apopka Vineland Road. It is my hope that the commission will continue to address traffic congestion in this area. Also on Ocoee Apopka Road, because there'll be a number of people who will use that avenue as local traffic. Also, please continue to work cooperatively with the county as you've worked with them in creating this development. I understand that at least two of you, possibly more, have reached out to work cooperatively with the county on traffic situations and safety. And I urge all of you to work together in unity to continue with making this area safe and as congestion-free as possible. Also, I noticed the developer's accommodations on land to the northern edge of the property for a future extension of the West Orange Trail. I'm sure many of those in our area will appreciate that effort. Other than that, I saw no changes, no significant changes in the plan, and I'm hoping that there are no significant changes at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any comments, or anybody want to speak to this issue? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back up to the dais for a vote. First we'll vote on number A, second reading of annexation, and then we'll go down the line to get all three of them. So I need a motion for number A.
Before we go to the motion, there is a brief discussion on that.
Yeah, I said,
Mr. Chair.
anybody want to talk?
Okay, yeah.
Here.
Well, I live off McCormick, and I see the traffic on McCormick quite a bit. McCormick and Apopka Vineland Road. It is it is really, really hard to get off McCormick to turn left or right, north or south on Popka Vineland Road. Now we're looking at annexing it in and bringing in, did you mention about 300 homes, when it's totally complete, about 300 homes. And I was very happy to hear that there was plans to put a signal at Popka Vineland and McCormick Road. However, you did mention that they were only committing about $200,000 to it. Is that, I just want to make sure that I got it straight. And if so, who's committing the other half? We were talking about maybe about $450,000 to add a signal there. Who is committing the other funding to do that?
That'd be Orange County government.
So Orange County has approved the full amount to add that light there, or are we on the hook for adding some of the funding to that?
As part of their discussions, we were notified that as to meet that kind of commitment, they've worked out together that the developer's only on the hook for the $200,000. So that would be, and it specifically talks about at time of plat, so they, Orange County, would have it funded and would believe that they would have the signal analysis warrant met at such time. So that would be Orange County, yes. The city is not a party to this, other than agreeing to put it as a condition of our approval in the minutes. It's not a part of a development agreement. It's just in our condition of approval, recognizing this commitment they've made with the adjacent.
So in layman's term, the city would not have to fund any part of this. The county and the developer will actually work together to make sure that that light gets added there at that intersection.
Yes, it would come forward as a sort of a tri-party agreement if we were playing a role in that, and we are not.
But we're not playing a role in that. That's just, okay. All right, just wanted to make sure that that was the case there. I don't have any other questions. I just wanted to
All right, anybody else?
address that.
I just have one question.
Commissioner
I didn't read this in there. Is this gated or not?
Don't believe it's proposed to be gated.
Okay, I didn't see it in there, so I'll clarify. Thank you.
I would ask the question just to see, I know Popka's building all on the north side of that road. Are they putting any money out for anything? They're putting all the building on the north side of McCormick Road. I mean, are they contributing anything to the county or to anybody?
Mayor, the city staff has not been a party to that negotiation with them, so I couldn't tell you, couldn't answer that.
They cleared a lot of land for more houses. All right, I need a motion for the second reading of annexation.
Mayor, just one last question along the lines with what you're saying about Apopka. Was the church at the corner of McCormick and Apopka Vineland, were they made aware of this development, and did they have an opportunity to weigh in at that particular intersection? Because if you try to get out there on a Sunday when churches actually when they're taken out and they're leaving, it is a nightmare to try to get out of there right now.
Right.
And that's on a Sunday. So
I'm not sure. I'd have to measure there. It seems like there's a property in between the West Orange Trail and that church. If it's within 300 feet, it would have received our mailed notice.
okay.
But otherwise,
Otherwise, they
we
did
didn't
not.
have any land that we could post because it's on the West Orange Trail. We didn't have any land along a Claricona Ocoee Road that we could post. So if they didn't receive the 300-foot notice, it's
All right,
All right. Thank you.
once again, do I have a motion for second reading annexation ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson for the second reading of annexation ordinance. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner First. Any more comments? Not, let's vote.
Yes, Commissioner Brinson.
Commissioner Brinson votes yes on the phone. It carries unanimously. All right, I need a motion for second reading of ordinance for large-scale comprehensive plan amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment.
Motion made by Commissioner First for the second reading of ordinance for large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilson. No more comment? Let's vote.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous for Commissioner Brinson on the phone. All right, number C, second reading of the rezoning ordinance. Do I have a motion?
This is the rezoning ordinance and the approval of the PUD land use plan per staff recommendation.
Do I hear a motion?
and the condition that was, the revised condition.
Here's motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning ordinance.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Firstman for second reading of the zoning ordinance. Here's a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilson. No more comments? Let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Bresson voting by phone. All righty. Move to item number 18. Thank you very much. Thanks to the county too for joint work. Thank you very much. All right, regular agenda, approval of a contractual agreement for the Ocoee Youth Council, OIC coordinator. City clerk.
The staff report before you tonight is for the agreement between the City of Ocoee and the OIC coordinator Dorcas Dillard. Her contract expired September 30th. During the period of her contract, she had received $800 per month. At the October 1st meeting, there was a discussion by the commission to bring the contract back before the commission. So Dorcas is here to just request approval of her contract as was done with the previous contract.
All right, any discussion?
I just have one, I have a couple questions. I believe that there's $20,000 that we budgeted for this project, correct?
The $20,000 is broken into two different things, Commissioner. One was for the youth council and associated youth programs, and the other was for the $10,000 was for the internship program, like we did this year.
Am I allowed to ask Ms. Dillard a question?
Come up with the podium.
I mean, we, of course, my personally will make it fair. I think it's a great program.
Thank
I want to
you.
see it take off.
Okay, thank you.
How many hours a week do you think that you are, by the month? I don't know, again.
Right.
Because you're the one that is planning this. Is it by the month, how many hours you think you're going to
It's
be
by
doing,
the
or
month,
the week?
and I've been averaging about 24 to 27
A month.
a month. Right. 24 to 27. And does somebody have a question
You're really
specific?
making me work this, son. No.
Well, the question is, what, that 24 to 27 hours, what does that entail?
Right.
Can you give us an idea?
I guess if we start with the contract itself, and Rob, you might, or Melanie, you might be able to help me with this. I think the contract started in February. We started this process in August of 2018. So I did a lot of upfront work, developing the bylaws and the planning and all of those things and putting things in place. That was way before the February 1st contract. I don't believe, if I'm correct, that I actually charged the city for any work that I had done until April of 2019. And so I've gotten paid from April 2019 to September. We had our first official meeting for the council September. Our September meeting was the first official meeting. We had meetings prior to that, August, July, and June, when we were trying to get students to participate in the program. Emailing the principals, talking to the students and keeping them aware of what's going on each month. If any of you are dealing with high school students right now, and my experience, that's my experience for the last 10 years, it's very difficult, and since we have some here, I could probably look to them to say, very difficult to keep in contact with them by text, by email, by telephone. All of that takes time. I know we have a career specialist here. I'm sure she could say the same thing. Dealing with adults and dealing with young people are completely different. So there's a lot of hands-on things and a lot of personal things that come up. So I spend a lot of time talking to our students just about things that are happening in their lives to get them to the meeting, to get them excited about the youth council. So what else? We did a conference, and we have to prepare for that. That was in August. We're planning, we did a video, we are going to participate in the video competition that is statewide. A few of the students have already put some things in place for that video competition. We missed the competition, but we're still going to do the video in preparation for next year's competition. We have a community service activity coming up in December. And we're still looking for students to participate. And so, and I don't even know if we want to start the conversation, the partnership that we're looking to do. You tell me.
I can add a little bit to that.
When and
Go ahead.
where does it happen, the meetings?
The meetings happen here.
When? What's the dates and the dates?
Oh.
The days? Is it every week?
No, no, no. No, we have our board meetings. We have our board meetings here, and they are, I can tell you exactly so that we can get.
Well, you mean monthly? Is that
We
right?
meet monthly here. Exactly. I think I have.
I have a
the
question
list
too,
here.
is how much expenses do you have? I know you got $10,000, but what are the expenses that are involved? I mean, I know.
Well, first of all, I
Florida
haven't
League of
spent
Cities,
10,000.
we
I think
pay
it's
for the bus.
800 times April to, what is that? April, May, June, July, August, September, so 7 months. And the expenses so far have been just the conference itself. We had snacks for one meeting, so we haven't spent much money. We got Parks and Recreation to actually bus us to the conference down at the World Center Marriott. We have the Legislative Days coming up, so there'll be money put into that because that's in Tallahassee. That's a 2-day event. So we really have not spent any money yet specifically for that very small amount.
Yeah, just to maybe add a little bit to what you're saying about the OIC. I know Mrs. Dillard has been out. She's actually been creating partnerships with the community at large. One of the issues she deals with is actually just getting the kids motivated. So in an effort
That's
to
the
get them
biggest
motivated,
issue.
some of the things that she's come up with is partnering with organizations like GROTC, as you see here. What is happening here? They actually are here to actually give you a demonstration as to what's going on. Their partnership with JetBlue and some of the other airlines to bring forth an extension to the youth council. That allows kids to that have a dream of flight or engineering or aerospace engineering. It allows them to come to the program, or OIC program, and actually be able to get on a plane, learn about flight, working in the summer with Career Source, working at one of the local airports as an extension of the program, being able to get education on aerospace engineering, taking trips to DC to the museum. So there's this program that we're adding to the OIC is an extension of what we're doing, but it's not going to cost the city anything, because there is Career Source, along with some of the airlines, are actually coming in to add more funding for this particular program that we can extend it to kids at Ocoee High School and kids that live in the city of Ocoee.
And again, it takes time to get any kind of partnership together. And if you're dealing, again, with young people, it's going to take time. So to see the results, it's going to take time. We have to get them excited about being part of this program. When we come to the few times that I've been here with the students from the Ocoee Youth Council, it gives them an idea of how government works. And sitting here at meetings and listening to all of the talk about planning and zoning and all that. It's hard to get kids excited about those kinds of things, so we have to find really, it is, Rosemary. Very hard to get kids, so we have to find other creative ways to get this going and kicked off so that we can have students be interested in some of the things that we really want to do with city government. So however we can do it, we're working towards those kinds of things, and it takes time to do that.
Yeah, we've also invited a couple of organizations, as well as the Civil Air Patrol, to come in and talk about how they will partner with us in our youth council and how we can add educational components to the youth council, not only government, but also be able to help them to realize that there's other avenues besides government that they may or may not have been addressed or brought to their attention when it comes to flight and aerospace engineering and those type of activities. So we brought them here to talk a little bit about how they would actually incorporate their component into our OIC and some of the funding sources that's actually coming as a result of that.
Okay, but
I
do
wanna
you
make
have
a
any other
comment.
questions?
All right. When at the last meeting you brought up, and I'm pretty sure it was you, if we go back and look at about the fee being half of what it is for the
Not
pay
doing it.
for home historians.
Well, when I look into the program and look at what Ms. Dorcas is bringing, what Ms. Dill is bringing to the table here, I think that she's warranted the funding that we're actually providing for her to do the work she's doing. I think it's warranted because again, you get what you pay for. If someone was doing this free of charge to do this, you wouldn't get half. You wouldn't even get a quarter of what she's bringing to the table. You're bringing organizations, you're bringing funding,
You're
outside
bringing
funding at that.
contacts, you're bringing time
You're bringing so much
spent
quality
that
to
I've
the
been doing
table.
this.
Again, if you go and you buy it cheap, you're going to get something cheap. But if you actually pay for quality, you're going to get quality.
I don't know if that's always true, Commissioner. I travel with the city, and I've dealt with some of the youth functions at the National League of Cities. A lot of them have sponsors that are not getting paid, so it works either way. So
Okay.
I have no problem with the problem, and just like I voted no on the last one, it's because we got to spread it around to all people in the city. If we
Now,
vote
what
in the
makes you
city-
think that all people are not being asked to be part of this
I don't know if
program?
they're asked or not. I'm gonna ask the principal at school, because I want to
Please.
fill out forms, and please, there is students that need to be on it that can help, just like the Job Corps deal, we need those students.
So let me tell you, Rusty, there's two issues that have been coming up with this since I've been doing it since last year, trying to get kids part of the program. The one is that we've gotten several applications for students that are not in the city limits of Ocoee. Okay, so there's been quite a few, and Melanie could attest to that. So that means I'm reviewing applications from students that are actually interested in being part of this, but they are not because our bylaws say that they have to be.
That's why we put the bylaws in there, because they.
Well, that's what's going to make it very difficult for students to participate. So again, when we're talking about we're going to the city of, we're going to Ocoee High School, and Ocoee High School includes students from Orlando and other areas, Winter Garden and Ocoee, it makes it very difficult to get.
There are students that go to West Orange High School that live in Ocoee.
Correct.
There are students that go to Wekiva that live in Ocoee.
And they all have been
All right, that's
contacted,
all I'm
and
saying
every counselor, I have talked to Wekiva's principal, I know personally. So all of that has been done. And not just once or twice, several times. So again, it's only, all we can do is what the staff does.
Let me finish, please. I just
Okay.
think we need to take and look at being able to stress it for all three high schools, because we seem to forget up here that we don't have West Orange High School, but we do. We also have Wekiva High School. So I want to make sure we find some of the students for those areas also.
Okay, but what I'm telling you, Rusty, we have one Wekiva student on the council. We don't have anybody from West Orange, but all of those principals and all of the administrators have been contacted about the program. The website has been given several times. I have attended meetings at those high schools. Again, unless there's something to get them excited about being part of this group, it's very difficult.
Let me weigh in a little bit on that as well. And I understand where the mayor's coming from about the buy-in for the other high schools, because we do have Wekiva, we do have West Orange, and I think that it needs to be a collaborative effort because, again, we have commissioners in each one of those districts, and I think they go to homeowners association meetings. So I think that if we start to expand our efforts a little bit, because again, I don't mind going out to West Orange High School. I don't mind going to Wekiva High School as well. Maybe going to some of the PTA meetings, and I think that I can do that for Wekiva and West Orange to expand the scope of our program.
But I have to be honest with you, PTA meetings don't include the kids. And I have had so many conversations with parents about this organization and what we're doing. Parents are always excited. They want their kids to be involved.
Yeah,
They're
and that's the reason I mentioned the PTA
They're emailing me
meetings.
back. But the kids, and I have to say, Mom, Dad, I need your child to respond to me. And that's a little different.
I have, one of them says item number 18, which is what we're talking about, Darrell Gray. And then there's another one with the same OYC on it, so are they supposed to be talking about this now too?
Yes.
Well, all right.
Okay, do you
Darrell
want?
Gray.
That's it.
And-
Do you have another
and-
question?
I have questions for you
Okay.
after. if it's okay.
Antonio
That's
Phillips.
okay.
I'll
It's
finish,
okay.
I'll be in charge of that. I'll get with
Thank you.
you. We'll
I
get
just-
back.
I just
Let me
have
get them
questions.
up here first.
Okay.
Mayor Johnson, Commissioners, citizens of Ocoee, good evening. My name is Darrell Gray. I'm an Air Force veteran of the last decade of the Cold War in West Germany, and also an Army National Guard veteran of the Gulf War I and Bosnia. I'm also a member of the Tuskegee Airmen, and I'm also a Civil Air Patrol aerospace educator. Briefly, our vision and mission is to take the Tuskegee Airmen presence beyond just ceremonial and celebratory, because I run into young people and older adults who have never even heard of the Tuskegee Airmen. And this is American history that has not been taught in the schools.
We had one here a couple years ago, spoke at our Veterans Day.
And I know about 8 original ones right now here in Florida. And our new chapter that we're establishing will be named after this Orange County citizen who was an original Tuskegee Airman. So we want to honor the noble legacy of how they've accomplished beyond insurmountable odds of then, but also that to empower a young person to know the same thing is capable for them now. Because we're looking at, in the airline industry in our country within the next 10 years, a personnel deficit due to forced retirements. And as we're offering aerospace education to young people, they will be able to step into those ranks within the next 10 years. We want a young person to understand that if they have a want to be a pilot, an astronaut, an engineer, what have you, but we want to be able to match the how, why, when, where, when, and what, and who of information and infrastructure to make those possibilities a reality for them. And this is our goal, this is our vision, this is our mission, to invest in the new generation of aerospace professionals. We have a brief video clip.
We do a 3-minute time limit, but you want to speak, Nick?
My name is Antonio Phillips.
Yeah, okay.
Good evening to the commissioners. Good evening, Mayor Johnson. And I'm here representing Eclipsing Innovations. And I brought along some of the youth and this guy who I've been feeding for the last 16 years. He was just bringing up a topic with regard to how do you draw youth. And the best way to draw youth is by using youth. These are youth that are attending Ocoee High School. And by the way, they are all Ocoee residents, right? And they're also part of the JRTC program at Ocoee High School. And I want you to, as I'm speaking, go ahead and play that video, tell you a little bit first about some of the things that youth will be into. We know kids are into video games and those other things, but to be able to let kids know and prove to them that there's an opportunity for them to be able to get into programs. That's one of the Tuskegee Airmen there. Go ahead, just play the video, you fly. These are some of the things that we're gonna bridge the gap, in other words, between the Tuskegee Airmen and what we calling now the Generation Now and the Generation Next, where through an organization like OBAP, they took this young man into a camp and taught him not only how to fly a plane, but to land a plane. And when we went over to Ocoee High School on the 18th, on the 24th of October, the JROTC, the colonel, the chief, and the principal, Busey, was kind enough to have us address the youth, all the ROTC people there, to be able to let them know the possibilities of partnering with Eclipsing Innovations and Ocoee Youth Council to be able to get into aerospace and those things that will make them want to be not only part of the council, but do things like be part of Toastmasters, to be part of aeronautics, robotics, and those things. And we are talking now with Principal Busey to be able to be on campus on at least once a month basis, if not every other week basis, and take kids on field trips such as going to the Kennedy Space Center. In Maitland, there's a jet mechanic shop there. There's a gentleman who runs. We're going to do those kind of field trips and engage kids to be able to know there's a possibility. I just took these 3 kids to grab a bite before we came here, and one of them asked me as a parent, well, what was it that you did to engage your son into something like this? And OBAP gave him the opportunity to see when the people that came from OPAP, who was invited by most of the principals in Orange County, they saw themselves and were able to say, if he could do it, and there are people up there that look somewhat like me could do it, I want to be part of it also. Our director for the Southeast region of OBAP happens to be a woman pilot, which inspired Gabby to say, hey, if she could do it, I could do it. We will be taking these kids out on a flight line. They will be learning to fly for those who want to. Some of them say, I may not want to be a pilot, but I might want to do other things. So just to give you an idea, the proof is in the pudding, and we're going to be partnering with the Ocoee Youth Council. And the one thing, as you guys briefly spoke about, if you made it inclusive of the Orange County or the Ocoee schools or the kids that go to these 3 identified high schools to be part of the Youth Council, I do believe we'll have a better magnetism and a better draw. So,
All right.
oh, any questions?
Where's his wings?
Show them your wings.
We're flying. They didn't give you the wings?
He will be licensed on his birthday in February 2000.
That's amazing. I think the Silver Pro or all this is great stuff to do. That's the part I'm talking about, is having things like that to be involved in an organization. We have a Coast Guard group here also, that the Coast Guard, you can stand up. We have also the Coast Guard group that come and meet here in Ocoee also, which is a great group of young people.
If
But I
I
think
may-
it's a great thing when you do this, especially with this, that's how you get everybody involved into that organization.
And if I may just borrow another minute.
All right.
Civil Air Patrol is a community-based organization that Mr. Darrell Gray is making sure we bring that component to the community. So, and the kids are gonna learn other alternatives past high school to be able to get into some facet of aeronautics. We have partnerships with OBAP. We have cue the video for OBAP. We have a partnership with JetBlue University. We have a partnership with the Orlando Aviation Authority. They're all willing to support and do these field trips and make sure we keep kids engaged.
The president of the Babe Ruth League in Ocoee is the training pilot that teaches pilots out at JetBlue. He's one that recertifies. He's president of our Babe Ruth League.
And again, to tell the kids that there are scholarships available. We have 2 sophomores, 1 junior here, that with Ms. McKenzie, who happens to be the career counselor. I'm sorry, Ms. Hendricks. I'm sorry.
It's Hendricks.
Mackenzie's one of our pilots, I'm sorry. Ms. Hendricks, the career counselor at Ocoee High School, we are really gonna make a real nice composite program to make sure kids will be able to be exposed on a continual basis and have access to mentors.
All right, well, I appreciate it very much. Well, so are you guys joining in, but it's gonna be the same, kids gonna be the same?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just think it'd be great if you tied in all the schools. I think that's a good way to get them.
Under our new chapter for the Tuskegee Airmen, it is going to focus and include and expand Orange County.
Okay,
So other chapters are a little more restricted, but we want to include the county.
all right.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, yes, sir, thank you. Congratulations, young man.
And I also like to thank Ms. Hendricks for coming out. As you can see, the buy-in from Ocoee High School has been tremendous with Ms. Busey and Mrs. Hendricks as well. I ran into your husband last night. He told me you were going to be here, so thank you for coming out and supporting this program. And I think that as we continue to expand our OIC, we will have the same type of commitments with Wekiva and West Orange High School. And I also don't want to be remiss if I didn't mention the private high schools that we have here in Ocoee as well, which should also be included. So I will be personally making rounds, stopping, knocking on their door, and let them know about the program, sitting down with the principals. But I will definitely do that.
All right, is, Mr. Brett, you want to speak to this issue or something else? Okay, all right. Okay, we need a motion, I guess we need a motion. Motion and an amount.
I would like to make a motion that we approve item number 18 and keep it set at the original amount from the original contract.
So here's a second.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Oliver, seconded by Commissioner Wilson.
I just have a question, if you don't mind, at this point. Ms. Dillard? Yes. You had mentioned that, you might want to, okay, sorry, make you walk. We love to see you run over. You mentioned you're going to go to Florida League of Cities Legislative Days.
Yes, that's February 11th and 12th.
Okay. Yeah, I need to look at that. With the total budget that we have, I mean, we have, was it 10,000 left after the summer program? There was 20,000 between the summer program and 10,000 for this?
10 and 10.
Okay, how does that work out when you have extra activities? That, I mean, going to Florida League of Cities, yes,
Is there any
11 to 12.
fundraising?
Yeah, what's the, because
Yeah,
that's
we
that's
haven't
an
started,
expensive,
we haven't started any of that yet.
Yeah.
And my thought was, I didn't know the budget went 1 year, I knew I didn't spend that much money up to this point, so I didn't realize that, I mean, that,
Are you a 10-month, I mean, what's the month
I-
that you're gonna be doing? Because I'm looking at.
February to September was the first contract. I just figured we were extending it again for that time period, and
Let me
that
interrupt.
part we didn't.
How about fundraising? How about
We
activities
haven't
kids do
talked about
fundraising?
it. We
That's
haven't
another
talked
big
about
thing,
it
too.
yet. Right. We have not talked about it,
Yeah.
just because, again, to talk about fundraising for
Or-
a group of kids that are just starting, we just got them started in September.
Or as Commissioner Oliver said, sponsorships.
Right. Now, we have talked about that, and me and Commissioner have talked about all of those
Where you find
things.
the extra money.
Well, see, that's what I'm just looking at. I'd like us to know, or for you to know what you're looking at.
Right.
And are you going October 1st at the $800 a month till May? But then.
But, yeah,
you
but
go
we
in
need,
August to Florida League of
it's a
City Women.
full year program, because then, again, the summit comes back up in August, and we have to have students that continue through past May. So I have seniors now.
Well, if you do the 12 months, it's 800 a month, it's 9,600 bucks.
Yeah.
That's what we're.
Right,
That's what I'm
right.
getting
Well,
at.
again, I didn't,
You don't take off.
I
in
didn't know about the
summertime.
internship part. That's not how, again,
Is the kids when they're in
I'm
school,
just
out of school,
looking
I
at
got
it.
you.
down?
Well, what we can do, something that we've discussed is bringing in partnerships from the community at large. And I have gotten some interest from some private organizations that will be willing to help with some of the expenses that won't go beyond what we've already budgeted with the
Okay.
city.
I just like, open eyes,
Yeah.
okay? Because when you go to Tallahassee, I just know what it costs for
right.
me to go.
And I just assumed that we had the dollars to do that, so
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, you're opening my
Once
eyes.
again, I'm gonna make
Thank
a
you.
comment,
That's-
and y'all keep talking, but here's the comment, and I know we've had band members, we've had everybody ask us for money, we do the money, but they also go raise funds. So that's what I'm saying, if you've got this organizations, you also go out and raise funds.
Okay,
for
Rusty,
Sponsorships and different things.
okay, Mayor, when we started, when we had the budget from the beginning, that was not part of the conversation. So if that's going to be part of the conversation now, that's a different
That's
conversation.
I'm just saying, all organizations try to raise money to help there, and this gentleman will probably tell you the same thing. He's shaking his head, yes, that's part of it. And he had mentioned when we started this, Commissioner
We
Oliver
talked
talked
about sponsorships.
which
Exactly.
is
And we
outrageous.
still, that's the same, but
That's
fundraising
outrageous
with the
money.
kids, that was not part of what we were talking about doing. So I have to be honest about that.
Well,
Because again, I'm trying to get kids excited about things, and they have a lot of things that they already fundraise about.
I think
So-
it's part of the deal, is doing that and getting them involved.
Okay,
to help.
but again,
I'm not
Mayor,
trying- Let me just
okay.
finish, okay? You're arguing back with me about it.
I'm not arguing, you're bringing up something that was not part of the
No,
discussion.
we talked about it, because he said he was gonna find sponsorships and stuff, which I think is a great deal. And I think it's a great deal, especially with this, I love this, but I think it doesn't hurt to go out. I see kids that play Pop Warner football out raising money. I see kids that play baseball out raising money. That's all I'm asking, is she was worried about where the money's coming from. If you go into an organization like Tallahassee for a function, then you try to raise money. We also chip in money for things like that too.
Yes, you do.
I'm just saying it's a way to go
Yeah.
out, help raise that extra
Okay.
money.
All right,
Yeah,
Rusty.
yeah, well, I think that it shouldn't be a problem. As far as any expenses that you need, as far as talk about going to Tallahassee and different things of that nature, we should be able to raise the funds. I understand what the mayor's saying. He sees the kids out, you know, holding the buckets and different things like that.
Right.
But if we have organizations that's willing to help sponsor, I think that we should be just fine. We'll be fine. Yeah, we'll be just fine. I think we'll be okay.
You know, 'cause
But to Mrs. Dillard's point, I think that she's saying that, you know, from the time we started the program, she didn't spend nowhere near $10,000 that we allocated. So there was actually a bucket of money that was still out there
Exactly.
to help with some of these expenses from the time we launched the program.
But that goes away when October 1st.
Oh, it goes away. Okay.
Yeah, that
and-
doesn't, the only thing that gets to be, my understanding, I'm not a financial person, the only thing that carries over
Okay.
is if you got sponsorships, if I'm correct, that money would carry over, but when the budget's, my understanding is, this is my spring.
You use it or lose it, that what we're talking, right? Okay, and that's perfect, and that's perfect. I'm glad you mentioned that, because as we come into our next budget, I would like to see that line item added back to the budget, because it was just wiped out the budget, and then we had to go into our contingency. We had to go into our contingency to fund this program when it should have stayed on there, and it wouldn't have changed our millage rate at all to leave that program on there. So I'm going to ask that we consider that going into next budget, that we leave that line item there.
But nobody brought it up at budget. They would have been put on there. Nobody brought it up at budget. Did you, Rob? No, I'm asking.
But at some point, it was a line item on the last budget, and then we actually started creating this budget for this year.
Yeah, well,
Our finance director saw
passed.
that line item there, and then all of a sudden, it just disappeared.
I don't know, but here, it's passed.
So someone told her to remove the item, and I'm just asking that that item stays on our budget.
Okay, but I'm gonna just, may I make a suggestion?
I would suggest first budget workshop, we talk about that and just make sure of whether it's in there or not.
I'm just, again, my whole focus right now is the concern that there is money for you to do some of these activities, because the last thing we want to do is bring a group in
And not have the money.
nothing for them to do, because that's part of the learning experience. I know when you go into Florida League, I mean, I'm on the Florida League board. I see the value of having the students there at the Florida League of Cities, because I see these kids come in. These are the future. They're gonna be sitting here one day. Okay, so, but I wanna make sure that we, in the future, adequately fund this program. If we're going to start something, we need to make sure that we are
That we
adequately
have enough.
funded.
I agree.
And I'm not looking for you to make $5 an hour for all the hours you put in.
Right.
I know that you put a lot of time in. I know you, Dorcas. You take on things
Eh,
100%.
Exactly. And it's a passion of mine, right? So, but I'm not going to do it for free. So
This says
I'm
29
not.
to 33.
I do enough stuff for the city for free.
But
So
then she has to pay her own taxes.
I have to do taxes. I have the.
I know, but
Does that include any travel expenses?
That includes everything. That I don't charge the city for any of that.
right,
Even if
we
I have
need
to
to
pick
get a
up kids, be an Uber, all the things that need to be done to make sure kids are here.
What we do?
Yeah.
We thought that. Got a motion and a second.
Mayor, you need an amount. You need to put it,
It was part of the.
oh, I didn't hear that motion. Okay.
Same amount. But I'm asking you to please get involved with more, just like this group, and more kids from all the schools, is what I'm asking. I'll vote for it.
But again, our
I'm
bylaws,
asking, one,
We can cover that.
Okay.
the bylaw says if it's Ocoee's kids and they go to West Orange is our school. It's not just Ocoee. It's West Orange, Wekiva, and Ocoee. So that's what we're talking about.
city residents, though, the way the bylaws are written,
It's city residents, that's right. And they live in the city and they go to West Orange.
Okay.
Dorcas, they live in Westmere. They live in, what's that?
Brookstone.
Brookstone, the other one. All of them, they live in Ocoee. That's what I'm saying. If they live in the city, they go to West Orange, they go to Ocoee, and they go to, the kids on the, where you live, go to Wekiva, don't they? Yeah, they go to Wekiva. All right, motion, let's vote. Mr. Bress, did you fall asleep, Commissioner?
Nope.
Did he vote? Okay, Commissioner Bresson voted yes, carries unanimous. All right. Do you still want to speak, or you? Yeah. Okay. Time for comments from the citizens? Huh? Is it time for comments from the citizens yet? Yeah, I got two of you. Let me have Mr. Richmond first. And I want to make a comment, Mr. Richmond. I called yesterday after I got back from St. Augustine, and some children answered the phone, and I kept asking for you, but I don't think they understood me. So I finally just hung up. They kept.
I apologize.
That's all right. I have that happen in my house. So I just wanted you to know I did when I got back from St. Augustine. Matter of fact, I looked at my phone a while ago. 4:23. I called you yesterday. So.
Okay, I apologize.
All right. It's okay.
Hi, so for the record, my name is Donnell Richmond. I actually live in 365 Milllight Drive in Ocoee, Florida, 34761. My face may look familiar to some of you guys. I served on P&Z board for 2 years. I'm here today. I just to start over, I want to say good evening to my commissioners, my mayor, and the citizen of Ocoee. I'm here today. It's just I know I have 3 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. I'm here today. Just pretty much, I have an issue. The issues that I have. My wife and I own a small event hall right on the street in Blueford and Silver Star in the Quado Supermarket Plaza next to Metro PCS. We've been there for 4.5 years, going to 5 years. Never had any problem. God has blessed us to expand to a second building. We actually went on rent lease. There's a building, 215 North Clark Road, a $1 to $3 store. It used to be $1 to $3 store. So apparently we got that building, but we're running into some issues for permitting. So I'm asking the commissioners, I'm asking you guys for your help. It was come back to us as decline. We need to hire like a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, an architect. So for a minority small business, it's really like it's a huge cost for us. I'm looking at the commissioners to look at what ways you guys can help a minority. We've been in Ocoee for 10 years, going to 12 years. Both of my kids actually was born in Ocoee. So I need some help. I reach out to the mayor and I reach out to a couple folks in the city to see what you guys can do to help us.
We need to find out from the staff.
Mr. Mayor, the building official is still here, so perhaps you could have him. Okay.
I want him. Who's talking? Craig, you?
For the record, Craig Shadrick, Assistant City Manager. Out of respect to this fine gentleman, I'm not going to go into great detail. I would like for the commission to request that he meet with myself and Michael Rumor, Development Services Director, and Dean Hall, the building official. I will say that his issues stem from the change of use from this dollar store to a place of assembly, triggers some codes that we are trying to help him comply with. And I would suggest that we have a private sit-down outside the meeting here to try to work out a path to help him. But they're all related to compliance with the Florida Building Code in relation to a change of use on a facility.
Well, Mr. Richmond, Dr. Richmond, I guess it says, right?
Yeah, it's Dr. Richmond.
Sorry, what we need to do is it's better for you to meet with our staff, and, I mean, I don't know if anybody up there understands and knows what's going on with it, so if you go through them first and see if we can get it solved, if not, then come back and we'll try to see what we have to do, but I think we need to go through the staff and the building officials here. I don't know who you've been dealing with, and then we have the assistant city manager, if you'd like to meet with them, and then we can, after that, come back if we don't get any problems solved.
For future reference, I'm not sure if that can change. As a resident, if I put in an applications for the receptions to hand it to me, it says decline. Yeah, I guess I'll talk offside.
Just a quick question. It's my understanding you're taking a building that was actually designed and set up for one use, and then you're changing the use of it to something else that would actually house multiple people or a high occupancy for that particular building, which brings up safety issues or permitting flags that needs to be handled with that conversion.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
That's correct, sir.
All right, you through? Yes. All right. So is it okay if we do that? You need to, we're not the building official, so he's here, and he's assistant city manager over that too. So you meet with them, and then if y'all don't come to some remedy, then we'll have to address it. But if it's by the state codes or whatever, we have to go by it. So I think if you sit down with them, let's see if we can come up with some kind of a remedy.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
And I apologize, I did try to call you back when I got back from St. Augustine, but like I said,
No problem. I do apologize.
that's all right. I'll still get to see you.
All right. Thank you.
You had a nice place up at the other place, I do remember that one.
Thank you. We still have it, so we're just expanding.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Brad? Lomnick? 3 minutes?
Good evening, Board. Brad Lomnick, 957 Veronica Circle. I have just a quick question, if appropriate, for Commissioner Oliver. I had a question about the CLRM ordinances. I didn't see you, it's just in your district, but I didn't see you make any motions or seconds. I was wondering why you abstained on those. I know you voted on it, but why you didn't bring up any of the every other commission?
I mean, why I didn't bring up any
Yeah, why didn't you make a motion or a second on either of those?
I didn't make a motion because I was still contemplating on the traffic, and I wanted to make sure that I have a clear, not only for myself, but for the citizens that live in that district, have a clear understanding about that light and what's really going to happen when the traffic really comes. So I did hesitate to either make a first or second motion on that, not as a form of protest, but again, as a hesitation that I'm really concerned about that traffic. I'm not sure if you were familiar with that area or tried to
100%.
get out of that area, and I was concerned about the church. Were they notified? So I still have some reservations about it. I don't want to slow up progress for anyone in the city.
Why didn't you vote for no
I
then?
definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I do want to meet with the developer. Usually what I would do is, as I've done in the past, I'll meet with the developer and act to see if they would give me an idea of what the infrastructure plan looks like. And most of them will actually have that. They may not present it here, but I can actually take that information to my HOA meetings and then present it that way.
Perfect. Thank you.
I was going to, a while ago when the county guy was here, and why I asked that question, I don't understand why Popka can be building 1,000 houses on the north side of the road, and nobody worries about it, and worry about why we have traffic problems. Traffic problems are also caused by Popka. They're building all the homes. If you go over and look right now, they're clearing the land, looks like for about 500 homes. But they're not anybody asking them to put any money in to help us or help anybody else on McCormick Road. So somebody, the county, should be asking for, besides just us having to come up and figure out everything. When we're doing a one little project down the street, when they're tearing up everything on the north side of that road, they annexed all the way to the McCormick Road.
And you make a great point.
And the church, when you put that church in, nobody has put a light in at that corner.
And that's a great point. I think that when we start talking about collaboration and partnerships, it may be a good idea that we reach out to Apopka and say, hey, what are you guys going to do? How are you going to contribute to this light right here, which actually borders right on Ocoee and Apopka. So I think that's a great segue into some conversations that we need to probably have with Apopka.
So what's happening, even up there where the hospital's at, and all the, I looked at those homes the other day, if you go all, and apartments, they're all coming up through Ocoee Apopka Road and hitting our street, so that we're not getting any help out of any of them. Okay.
Is there any way that we can actually maybe ask the staff to maybe reach out to Apopka and see, can we open up some dialogue concerning some construction, road constructions, as well as traffic lights, maybe that, and also the you got together with other mayors to talk about this 1% tax that the county's pushing, and exactly. So I think that's great segue into bringing in some dollars into West Orange County that we can share with Apopka and Ocoee to start widening some of those roads.
We're dealing with that, but the major problem they're wanting to do is they're wanting to add it to the Sunrail and everything else. That's why we're trying to do the talks we're doing.
You guys got together, I think that's a great idea. Great idea.
All right. Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Wilson.
Okay. A couple I have. I know that, I don't think I need to have anyone from the police department come out, but Rob, I've been getting a lot of complaints regarding folks parking on the sidewalks. They're just continuously parking on the sidewalks, and the neighbors I'm talking to don't feel as though there's any enforcement. You know, we have folks that are on walkers, scooters, et cetera. They have to walk out in the road to get around them. And it's not as though I don't think anyone doesn't see it, because the neighbors are seeing it in different neighborhoods, and it gets very frustrating, especially if they have limitations where they shouldn't be walking out in the street and walking around folks. So I mean, if that is something that should be enforced.
Yeah, Commissioner, is it a specific problem in one subdivision or one area?
There's a couple neighborhoods.
Typically what we find when we go out and we start ticketing that, it's some of the people who've complained about it, blocking sidewalks, parking on sidewalks, and those type of thing. Sometimes we give the benefit of the doubt to the person before writing a ticket, maybe a warning or something like that, but we can certainly increase our enforcement if that's something the commission would like to do.
It just seems as though, I mean, they're not opposed to warnings, but folks just blatantly are parking across the sidewalks, and other neighbors are seeing that.
Yeah, and if we get someone call in, or if
one.
they can let you know if there's a certain repeat offender, then we can warn them, and after the first time, we can start ticketing too. Generally, the once in a while type, resident who does that, we don't want to go right up and give them a ticket for something like that.
Well, I think it's continuous. I know I've got 3 neighborhoods right now that are complaining to me.
If you'd like to give me that information, I can get that to the PD, and we can step up enforcement there.
I will be very happy.
Okay.
The other aspect is that, it's growing pains. The lakefront park, as we start to have more activities there, I think every time it's a learning experience, what we're going to learn from each event. And Oakland Avenue is a very narrow street. Downtown, all these streets are very narrow. And I gather on Saturday, we had a lot of people who were parking on Oakland Avenue, which then causes a bottleneck for the residents who live or travel on that area. And I think that when we have events down there, we probably need to be very aware that we should have no parking signs up on Oakland Avenue. Until we start putting parking in, which I gather that's what's on the plan on the park side of Oakland Avenue. But we need to be very aware that at this point, interrupting neighbors' activities or people driving?
And we can monitor that. I think that's probably the first event that was held there with the new park, so I'm sure
It's
it was
not
probably.
against the event.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with the event,
With-
it's
with
just that
Oakland open.
we need to be,
Was Oakland open?
Oakland,
She's talking about last weekend.
yeah.
Right,
And
right.
again, it's,
Yeah, but Oakland wasn't open for Founder's Day.
No.
is what
no,
I'm
but,
saying.
you know, again, this was our first event, and I think we need to take every event as a learning experience as to how we can make the adjustments. The park looked great. Park, as I say, I thought it was, I'm looking forward to Spring Fling being down there. But it's just the aspect that I think as we move along, each time we use something, we have to kind of tweak it. Last time it was the portalettes being put in on Oakland Avenue. Now it's the parking. So again, I think just being aware. Nothing against the events, just let's make sure that we keep our residents who are in the downtown area can travel back and forth to their homes. And there's one thing I did want to bring up, and I thought we talked about this a while ago, that if a program comes up to us and wants funding or asks us for a donation, we had talked about one time saying we wanted 30 days notice before we make a decision, because we kind of like to have the material in front of us regarding what they're asking for or what event they want us to sponsor. And so I'd like to see from the commission that we make sure that we enforce that, because I know at times we just don't know the programs. And it's nice to read about them or to understand what they do to see if it fits in. I think the last one was brought up regarding the Hispanic or Haitian chamber, and none of us really had a lot of knowledge on it. So it's kind of nice if those items, if someone does make a request, that we get the request at least maybe a meeting or two before, so we can understand what's being asked of us to use our taxpayer dollars. So I'm asking the commission to, I believe we talked about it, and I'm asking the commission to, if that's the case, that we follow that
I
plan.
don't bring anybody here.
Huh?
I don't bring anybody.
Well,
They
but
They seem to come anyway.
they do, but the thing is, I think if we say that, they will then present their material beforehand, so we can read it and know what the program is. Again, I like to read things beforehand. I don't like to spend our taxpayer dollars without me knowing what we're spending it on. So I'm asking the
Yeah, you need to
commission.
put that notification out. Matter of fact, you can put that on TV also. When we do any kind of money, we do it with a 30-day notice.
If the commission would agree, if the commission would agree with me, just so we can, I'd like to read it. I'd like to know if
Yeah.
someone asks us
All right.
what we were doing. So if that's the
Okay,
commission's pleasure, I appreciate that.
all right. You done? Commissioner first.
Never done, but yes.
No, I don't have any comments.
Commissioner Oliver.
Actually, just a couple items. One, I'm not sure if staff is aware of the water levels on Lake Meadow. Lake Meadows, the water levels?
Yes.
When you look at some of the, they have Mark Adams Road, you have those farms along Mark Adams Road, and the water level is so high that they're actually up almost right up their homes. We have some of them that have 7-foot retention walls, and the water is literally right at 4 foot high. And I had an opportunity to visit some of those farms, and we have a chicken farm with the egg farm there, and they're almost underwater. One of the things that they may be attributing to some of the rising water levels is, for one, we actually had a lot of rain this season, but also when we look at Auden Park South and the way they actually built it up, some of the water is actually draining off from Auden Park South into the lake, which is a contributing factor in flooding those farms. So what I did, I actually went over to Auden Park South to look at the retention pond that's there. And the retention pond is bone dry, but the lake level is actually high, pushing water back on the farms. And I know it's probably the county and the state responsibility, because I don't think we have the ability to control any of the water levels for this particular lake. But I was just wondering if there any way we can maybe point them in the right direction as to how they would go about mitigating some of this flooding, or at least looking at how this water is being routed off of Auden Park into that lake, or at least get it rerouted back to where it should be going, and that's the retention pond.
Yeah, I'm aware there was an issue, Commissioner. I think you brought it up briefly a couple of weeks ago, and I had the folks from Public Works take a look at it. I don't know if you've had some communication with them since then, but I could get with city engineer and the public works director to see what they found out. I'm fairly sure they went out and they did a site visit and looked at the plans for Arden Park. So I will check with them to see what conclusions they came up to and see if there's any other agencies that they need to turn that over to.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
I will tell you, that's not the first time that's been that way for 50 years. When it rains a lot, that lake comes up and they've got that pasture built into that wetland.
I visited, I know Mr. Russell, Wade Russell has been there for over 35 years, and he showed me pictures of how it would look year before last and the year before that, and it was actually bone dry. It was just kind of unnatural for him to have it that way, along with Dale next door to him. I went and visited Dale as well, and I know they're in the county, but I think that we want to kind of look at how water's draining off of the subdivision within the city and to see if that may be a small contributing factor to the flooding. Anything we can do, I think they would really appreciate it. Secondly, the July and November festival Saturday was a great festival. I'm not going to say anything about Founders Day because that was great. I had a great time at Founders Day as well, but I'll let you talk about that. The July and November festival Saturday was a wonderful event. We got a lot of participation. The park looked really good. And I think, Rosemary, I think you had a great time. You were there. But again, as she stated, we also want to make sure that we start looking at our logistics as it comes to the residents that live in that area when we're having events. And she makes a great point. So I definitely would like to see us look into that as we move forward with any kind of event at Beale Breeze Park. And I also went to the Winter Garden Veterans Day program, Representative Ocoee. For the Veterans Day program. It was a great program with former Commissioner Wilder in Winter Garden. I also mentioned that asked them to start participating in some of the things that we're doing over here, and she assured me that they will start participating in the things that we're doing here at Ocoee as well. And finally, I want to ask about, since we're approaching the centennial of the Ocoee massacre, and I know the HRDB is planning on doing some different events during that time frame next year. I just wondered, Mayor, if you can possibly, since you sit on that board, could you give us an update as to what the HRDB is planning right now for that centennial event?
They had it all laid out. That's the chairman. I'm a ex officio member. I don't do the preparations. I do know they've set up the date for the 31st and 1st of November for that.
So you don't know what the actual particulars?
They've got all that. Bill Maxwell's going to be here tonight, but he's out of town. And they'll come give all that presentation. If somebody wants to listen, they didn't seem to, but they've got it all laid out for it. So for the unveiling of the sign that the state give us, but that's their board. I'm just, like I said.
So maybe they can come and give a presentation to the commission and let us know, because we're less than a year out right now.
It's a
and I know
year.
to do something on that grand scale, it takes time.
I know if anybody would listen to them, they're a great group. They've been doing it for a long time, Commissioner. They've got it taken care of. They've been working on it for a long time. I went with them the other night to the Winter Park Diversity Place and went to a group. They're going to even help join in and do some stuff for us. So they've got it laid out. They got it planned. They've had it laid out. They were, you need to talk to Bill Maxwell and Kathleen and Nicole.
Okay. Well, I'll just ask them if they can come to the commission and give us an update. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
will.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. Let's see. No meeting. Did we vote on the no meeting at the end of December already?
Do we vote on what?
The meeting in December the 24th. We need to kind of,
Well, let me get my calendar out on that one.
let's see, the 3rd and the 17th, right? It's the 3rd and 17th, so are we gonna meet the 3rd and 17th, or are we gonna be,
All right. We are canceled the 19th, correct?
the 19th of November?
Okay, that's canceled.
All right, so are we meeting the 17th of December, or do we need to address that?
The 3rd and the 17th are the two meeting dates.
Huh? Of December?
Are you asking if we have?
Well,
No, that's what I'm asking everybody up here.
Yeah, I don't see no reason why we shouldn't meet.
It depends also, I mean, before we would before we go anywhere, we'd have to see, as the agenda been, or as there items that are for the second hearing?
No,
or-
I'm just asking because
Oh.
somebody asked me, so I'm asking.
Well,
I don't see any reason why we
I'll be in
why we
town.
couldn't meet.
I'll be in
see
town.
Anything. I'll
Well,
be in
we'll
town.
address it in December the 3rd.
is that
Right.
too late? No?
I don't know, that's
Should
why
be
I
fine.
asked. That's why I
I'm
asked.
here, I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere, I'll be here. So you got three of us here.
It's
That's-
the
that's-
pleasure of the
That's
commission,
a quorum
whatever.
right there. Richard, you
I'm good.
here?
What about Commissioner, we have the voice to the phone?
Yeah, the box. Charlie, are you there?
Commissioner, are you available on the 17th?
Yes, I am.
All right, so, all right. Well, if it changes, we can talk about it on the 3rd. I'll be here myself, so I don't care. I'd like to say, yeah, I was out of town this past weekend. I was up in St. Augustine. The Founder's Day, we'll come back in a couple weeks and bring we have a little video to run and show you. There was the police and even some of the fire people said somewhere between 15,000 and 18,000 on Saturday. That was one of the biggest crowds they think they'd ever seen. A lot of people had a great time. A lot of people got to have free entertainment. But it was the park was set up. The whole thing's set up now for where it expands out, and when it finishes, we're up on the new city hall and all that cleared out. It really will. But the police said that, I think like 15,000 to 18,000. They said they had it figured somehow. I don't know. I do know there's a lot of people, and they were sitting in chairs all the way back up towards McGuire House, sitting in chairs and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have we just met yesterday for doing some of the recap. So all the total stuff will be done in maybe next coming month, and we'll bring it back. And like I said, I want to bring the video and bring some people that help work on it. So we'll address that maybe December.
Can you say something, Mayor, about, I got a lot of positive comments about the Withers McGuire House. They had walked through and how they really liked the way it looked
Yeah.
now.
Oh,
And,
everybody. I
that
had
was a
nothing but great comments come from people about the Withers McGuire House. And, we caught some flack about the wedding, the gazebo, but now we're getting good comments about it. We changed it to where it's the gazebo, the new gazebo, the new wedding facility and all that. People love it, so
And the
that's good.
Veterans Park is up front.
Yeah, so it's gonna be great.
Princeton,
Yeah.
you say you wanted to speak?
Did she?
Commissioner Brinson, I think, has
Commissioner
some.
Brinson, can you turn him up loud where he can make his comments?
Go ahead. You can go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, hopefully everyone can hear what I'm saying. Yes. Okay, great. I just wanted to understand that we're doing a learning curve here with me calling in. First of all, I'm doing well. My knee is doing well, so I'm home resting, trying not to do any medication so I can speak intelligently and coherently. Also, one of the things I wanted to say concerning the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority and their participation in the doing business with GOA, we have great feedback. I'll discuss more of that once I'm there in person and in the flesh as opposed to telephonically. So I wanted to make sure that we're aware that we have some success stories already. At least 3 businesses, as my last count, has actually got business with the airport behind that particular event. So that in itself, I think, is a success story in and of itself. And GOA is really looking forward to our next event, which is obviously going to be in the first quarter, maybe the second quarter of next year. So next calendar year. So that's wonderful. So I thank you all for all your participation, the city staff. I think I've thanked them before. The commission and Mr. Mayor, I thank you all for allowing that to take place and doing everything we can to make that success. As far as the trash, I did want to talk a little bit something about that. I had a couple of people come to me and email me concerning they just got their tax bill with the trash fees on it. Even though I guess they were supposed to opt out, they didn't for whatever reason. But before they did opt out, but now they're being double taxed for trash. So I don't know if that's an issue that other residents are having, but I think that's maybe something that we can talk about with Public Works.
Do you know anything about that, Rob? Did we get double taxed on?
No, if I understood what Commissioner Brinson was saying, some people didn't have the opportunity or didn't opt out, so what they usually pay on their utility bills was probably shifted to their tax bill, which means they get a 4% discount on it now. But yeah, I mean, we could look at any individual instances. I'm not aware of any mistakes that were made, or whether,
We have somebody look into it.
yeah, we will.
Okay. Anything else,
Okay.
Commissioner Branson?
No, not at this time. I think that's enough for tonight.
Did you do both your knees or one? Did he hear me?
Just one.
Just one.
Okay. Well, we hope you get better. Take care of that. Want you out dancing until you get it well. All right, so no meeting November the 19th. Be back here on December the 3rd. Meeting adjourned. Hey,